A very good afternoon to all. Scope welcomes you for the webinar on human values and business ethics. Scope welcomes you. Scope welcomes you all for the webinar on human values and business ethics. In today's world, human values and business ethics are two these important words which are very important in the professional world. Business ethics provides some fundamental principles that are very much needed while doing the business and as well as or you are opening a new business venture. So I introduce Ms. Ankita Dave, who is the speaker for this webinar, Human Values and Business Ethics. Ma'am, please start the session.
Good afternoon. Give me a second and can you see my slides? Yes? Are the slides visible? Is my presentation visible to you? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ankita Dave. And I'm going to talk to you today about exploring the convergence of human values and professional ethics. Like ma'am has explained, human values and professional ethics are extremely important in today's business world. Ethics and values outside of business world for human life are also just as important. You really cannot function without a value system or a set of ethics. Now, how an individual defines these values or what is the value system and ethical core that a person follows is extremely individual. And we are not here to discuss what is right and what is wrong and which values are acceptable and which are not. I'm going to merely be talking to you about core human values as defined by science and core professional ethics as again defined by people in the work world, people and scientists and psychologists, and why these need to merge and converge together so that a person can achieve or maximize their professional potential. Right? Why is it so important? Why are we talking about professional ethics and human values? That is what I'm going to talk to you about. I'm going to sort of work with you or give you ideas and a framework of how you can go about setting for yourself your own value systems, your ethical codes, and how you can function in the business world based on these. So without further ado, let's get to it. To start with, first, I said value and value system, but what is value? What are values and what is value systems, right? This simply the beliefs and principles that define your thought process. Why you think or why you perceive something as is. Why do you think in a particular way is your value system. What you believe in, what you're ready to stand up for, what you think is correct and what you think is wrong. That is your value system. Those are your values. Now, again, I'm not saying what is right or what is wrong. I'm not defining the right and wrong for you. Each of us defines it based on various socioeconomic parameters, like the society you grew up in, your upbringing, your social situation as you were growing up, what you saw your parents do, what you saw your teachers do, what you saw your friends do, what you saw acceptable in society at large is how your value system gets developed over time. This is the core of your personality. Now, when somebody says that something is the core, the idea is, or the belief is that it is rigid, it is stagnant. But with a value system, that is not true. It is a dynamic system. Why? Because life experiences constantly add and change to it. It is human to be able to modify your value system based on context. As we go further, I will tell you more about this, but understand that you have a value system, you have core values that you believe in. One expects and one hopes that they stay the same throughout your life, more or less stay the same, but there will be changes, and that is okay. That is acceptable. That is human. Yes. Do not shun changes. Do not run away from them. Do not think that because I believe in this and now an opposing view has been presented, which makes sense, I cannot accept it, or I cannot change my values or my beliefs to accept it because it will damage my core value system. That's not true. It will not. It will merely enhance it, will merely change it. Right? Now, clearly, then what are ethics? So when you have a value system, that is your thought process. That is your perception, tells you how to think. Ethics, are you actually implementing those thought processes? Right? What you decide is acceptable behavior. What you decide on how to act with people in situations, in reaction to occasions of events that are happening. Those are your ethics. It's a compass for you. Right? I behave in a particular manner to given situations. Why? Because my value systems have created a set of ethics for me. So for example, I believe in non-violence. Do not believe in confrontations. Right? So in any given situation, when there is a confrontation, when I'm expecting there to be a confrontation, my value systems and my ethical code push me towards not engaging in a confrontation. They push me towards behaving and acting in a way that I diffuse the situation. Now, how I do it varies based on context. Depending on the situation, depending on the people I'm dealing with, I might talk to them, explain it to them, or I may just remove myself physically from that situation. Get it? How I behave depends on the context and the people involved, the situation I am in. But ethics are what tell me how I should behave. So my ethic is do not get into confrontations. Right? Avoid them as much as you can. Right? So my value system is what my ethics are. Similarly, for each person, for each individual, their ethical code depends on their own value system. Now, this is my personal ethical code, but because society is made up of people and society is a multitude of human beings, there is an established set of ethics that is socially acceptable. Yes, these vary based on different cultures, different countries, right? So different value systems exist, so different ethical codes exist. But society has ethical codes, and any divergence from this code attracts retribution. You must and you will see some sort of fallout if you diverge from these set codes. We are taught these ethics, right from the day we start learning things, right? Walking, talking as babies, you are taught and indoctrined in these ethics, societal ethics, right? So as you grow up, you learn them, they become part of your personal ethical code. You may not believe in them sometimes, you might think they are not right, and that is when people rebel. And that is when rebellion starts, when your idea, your ethical code is at complete divergence with the ethical code of society, that is when rebellion happens. That is when people go against society. Right? But we are taught these codes. We are indoctrinated these codes. And retribution is expected. Now, how much you diverged from the acceptable standard decides the retribution, the degree of retribution, right? It could sometimes be just a frown and somebody will tell you, no, that's not acceptable, please don't do it. Or it could be completely considered illegal, right? The other far end of the spectrum, right? So societal code, ethical code demands, for example, that you do not commit murder, that you do not thief, that you do not rob, right? But for example, if I were, stealing is bad, right? Now, if I were to steal a pastry in my own house or a piece of chocolate in my house and I, right, eat it without telling anybody, when there's chocolate for everybody, when it's common family food, and I steal it or I eat it without telling anybody, I am stealing at a certain level. What retribution I expect is my mom probably telling me, not done, very bad. How can you not do this? And that is it. But if we take that same habit, stealing, now if I go and rob a bank, I'm still stealing, still against the ethical code, still against, now I'm against the legal code of this country. So what happens is they catch me and they put me in jail. Right? So any divergence attracts retribution. The degree varies depending on the degree of your divergence. Right? It could fall somewhere in between. Somewhere in between could be like, instead of stealing a piece of food, I could probably steal some money out of my mom's purse. Right? That would not just bring a frown from her or just, her telling me that not done, this is not good habit. She'd probably ground me. I'd probably have to return. Of course, I'll have to return the money. I'd probably given more chores to do. Right? My access to her room or to wherever her purse lies may be completely stopped or limited. And every time that something goes missing, I would probably become the first person that is doubted on. So you see, retribution will happen. How much you diverge will decide its degree. Okay, so this is the difference between what values and ethics are. You can see they're different, but they're still interconnected and interdependent. Okay, now, what are professional ethics? When I talked to you about ethics just now, I was telling you about personal codes of conduct. Once you step out into the work world, once you start working, there are acceptable ways of conducting yourself in your workspace. Right? There's a moral compass. And that when you follow that compass, only then are you in tune with professional ethics. Right? Now, we carry our personal ethical code to our workspace because we're a person. We have to, at the same time, also adhere to the code of conduct or the professional ethic code that the organization has. Right? Any organization, the main or the basic reason for business is to generate value, to generate income. Right? So an organization's professional code of conduct would be in tune to fulfilling that dream or achieving that motive. Right? Now, if you want to truly maximize your professional potential, you need to be sure that your own personal code of conduct or personal ethical code matches that of your organization code. Right? So, like the example I gave you, my ethical code does not allow me any sort of confrontation. So if I get into a job or a profession which requires me to be constantly in confrontational mode, I am not going to do well because I cannot adjust to it. My personal code does not let me adjust to it. So it is not smart on my part to pick up professions that would encourage me or that need me to be in the direct path of confrontations regularly. So, for example, I probably would never be an extremely good litigator. right? Because what do litigators do? They are confronting people based on whatever brief they have, right? They have to dig and ask questions and put people in difficult positions to get the truth out. I am not the sort of person who can do that. So those are not correct career paths for me. Get it? So if I can pick a job where my ethical code is the same or similar, right, is in alignment with an organizational uh, code, then I can do well there. Get it? So again, I do not believe in any sort of violence. So for me, something like the medical profession, surgery and all also doesn't work. I find it very difficult to, for example, I have a pet. I find it very difficult to watch the doctor even give her necessary shots. She cries, I cry. Yes. So that's not the profession for me. So for me, something like this training, where I can take my knowledge, I can share it, I can learn new things and then share it with others, works. So because my ethical code is in convergence or in alliance with the ethical code of the job I do well. Okay? Again, whenever there's divergence, therefore, would my performance, your dedication to the job suffers. Right? If you do not believe in the core values of your organization, you're not going to be able to do well there. Right? You're not going to be dedicated to the job. Many times we find people who do a job, but they keep on cribbing that this is not worth it. I'm not getting paid enough for this. Why? Is because there is divergence in the ethical codes, the organization's ethical codes, and the person's personal ethical codes. Right? There's a song by Shania Twain that it says this job ain't worth the pay. She has this line in one of her songs, right? That is essentially that, the divergence and the compromises that it forces upon you. Yes. Now, going back, right? So this is defining ethics, defining values. Now, what are basic human values? Because like I said, I'm not going to give you a list of values and say, okay, these are your list of values. Please inculcate them, please follow them and do it this way. No. Right? Why? Because I cannot do that. Nobody can do that. It's individual to you, right? But there is a theory. It's called the theory of basic human values. It was developed by a psychologist by the name of S.H. Schwartz. Okay. He, in conjunction with a lot of his other psychology colleagues, have created this theory. Now, it's a very complex theory. There are complex tools that are set that measure values. Now, we're not getting into those things. I'm just giving you a brief overview of what values comprise of every human being. Right? Now, this is true across cultures. So they have done extensive studies and they have created a list of 10 basic human values, which hold true across all people, across all cultures, across all countries. Right? Now, they've taken those 10 values and divided them further into 4 groups. The first is openness to change. We'll talk about each value and each group, but just to give you an overview, openness to change. That's your first group. The second is self-enhancement. Okay. The third is conservation. And the fourth group is self-transcendence. Okay. Again, one more time, I'm not giving you a list of what is acceptable or what are good or what is good or what is bad. I'm just giving you the framework of 10 basic human values. Okay. Now, under openness to change, there are 2 values that they classify. One is self-direction, the other is stimulation. Self-direction is basically how much independence of thought, independent of action do you have? Are you somebody who is inward and works based on what they think is right without care of everybody else or society at large? Or are you somebody who seeks societal approval? Are you somebody who seeks parental approval? Would you be able to create your own ideas? Are you able to run with your own ideas? Or do you depend largely on what friends think or what others think and create your ideas based on those values, right? So self-direction. Again, none of these is wrong. None of these are wrong. It is entirely individual. It is based on where you come from. So that's fine, right? If you depend on others' validation to for your thought process, to defining your thought process, that is also fine. If you are entirely independent, that is also fine. If you're somewhere in between the spectrum, also fine. Yeah. So the first core value we talk about is self-direction. How self-directed are you? How self-motivated are you? Who is it that drives you or your thought process? Is it you? Is it others? Is it a mixture of the two? Self-direction. Stimulation. Stimulation is how much does novelty and challenge and excitement in life direct you? How much does that, how much is challenge, how much is challenge or excitement the reason for you to do something? Is it important for you? Do you need to be challenged? Yeah. There are some people who cannot function if there is nothing challenging. There are people who have to have something new or exciting happening for them to feel complete, for them to be able to function normally. Right? Daredevils, for example, they do death-defying things, things that most of us can't even imagine. And they do it. Why? Because that is what moves them. That is what drives them. And there are some who are completely follow a set standard and set rules as fixed time of eating, fixed time of waking up, fixed time of sleeping, fixed everything. And that's what that drives them. Neither of them is again wrong. That's just what they value. Okay, so these are two. The next group is self-enhancement. Here there are three values that we talk about: hedonism, achievement, and power. Right? Hedonism is the pursuit of self-gratification and pleasure, all sorts of pleasure. Right? How important is that? How much of value do you place on pleasure, self-pleasure, self-gratification? Right? Am I a person who needs to constantly be comfortable, to constantly be pleased for me to function? See, I have an aunt, and I'm going to be peppering this with examples of people I know, right? Just to tell you that nobody is wrong or right, just to give you an overview. I have an aunt, and of course, because she's my aunt, she's quite senior, but to this date, she absolutely loves bags. Okay? There is no bag of any value that is too expensive for her. If she goes into a store and she likes a bag, she has to get it. Whether she needs it or not is out of the question, right? Because that now all she does, she hardly goes out, she doesn't work anymore, she's retired. So she does not really need the number of bags that she buys, but bags are what are important to her. And she loves bags. It's not the price. It's not the price. She'd find a bag with a street seller, from a street seller, and buy it and be happy with it. She'd go into a designer label and buy a multi-lakh bag and be happy with it. But she has to get it. If she likes it, she has to get it. Right? She's 70 years old. Most of her bag collection is just sitting in her cupboard, but that is her joy and that is her pride. And that is something she has to absolutely get for her to feel fulfilled. So she, even at this age, works. Why? Because she wants to be able to afford those wonderful bags that she wants to buy. Hedonism. Right? It's not wrong. It's just you. So where do you place pleasure in your life? Right? Achievement. Achievement is your own personal success. What do you consider success? Right? Based on your competence, based on your abilities, what is success to you? Right? Yes, we measure it based on social standards also, but to you, what is important? Right? If I, for example, I bake bread. Yes, for me, if my bread, when I cut a piece of bread, right? If it does not crumb, then I think it is perfectly done. It's done well, right? At the same time, my husband also bakes. For him, the standard is that his bread should crust really well, right? Which means that the top and the bottom should be nice and hard. When he cuts it, it should create a crunch. So his bread naturally, when it's so crunchy, it crusts more than mine does. So for me, his bread is not good enough. For him, mine is not good enough because my bread sometimes is a little soft. Get it? Now, I've given you a very basic example, but you understand? So personal success, what do I consider success? Right? Measured against social standards. What is it for you? That is your achievement levels. Those are your achievement values. Yes. Giving you a slightly different example for the same thing. For me growing up, my parents had different values for achievement. Right? Again, they're very different from me. I'm talking about scholastic achievements, right? In school. So for me, being able to understand a subject or understand a topic and get into the exam hall and clearing my exam was good enough. Right? I was happy. If I went into an exam and I was able to do as much as I required to clear my exams, I was happy. Right? For my father, it has always been me being able to apply that knowledge. Whether or not I score well in my school exams was not important to him. But what I could do with that knowledge, could I really apply it in the real world, in real world situations? That was important. For my mom, it was always how well I did in exams. She didn't expect me to come first or second, but she definitely did not expect me to just clear my exam. She expected me to do reasonably well. She expected me to be in the top 10% of my class. Right? So growing up, this was a constant conflict. I was happy with just getting through. My father was happy if I had practical application, but I had my mom who was pushing me towards doing better than what I considered was good enough. Get it? So these are achievement standards. Was any of us wrong? I don't think so. Yeah, there was just different standards. So that is your achievement value. Power. Right? Again, this is about self. So this is about inside of you, right? Self-enhancement. So inside of you, power. Power is a variety of things. So power is understanding the resources you have and the control that you have on it, or whether you prefer dominating people or controlling people. What is your social status, if that is important to you or not? Prestige that you have in society. Is it important for you that everybody should know you and appreciate you? That everybody should be aware of the things that you do? Are you just happy doing what you do and knowing that you make a difference? Is that all the power that you need? Being aware of it yourself and knowing the difference that you make. That's good enough for some. For some, it is acknowledgement from everybody. It is acknowledgement from parents. Right? So what is the power value that you attach to yourself? Do you consider yourself powerful if you are acknowledged by everybody as being powerful or as being the top dog? Are you happy and you consider yourself powerful because you know you made a difference? Nobody else needs to know. Yeah. So those are the three basic human values that come under self-enhancement. The third group, conservation. Conservation is about security, conformity, tradition. Right? This is not just internal. This is you in conjunction with your surroundings, with people, with culture, right? With the traditions of the society. So first, security. What is security for you? What are your security values? Right? What is it that is enough for you to consider yourself as stable? This could be in terms of your relationship with others. This could be in terms of your relationship with money. or your time, your relationship with time, with your job. Again, also, what is it that is enough for you, yourself, to feel safe and secure? Right? When I was growing up, right, for me, I had an X amount of money that had to be in my bank for me to not go crazy with worry that I'm going to starve tomorrow. Now, with God's blessings or God willing, I have never had to face a situation or never been in a place where I would literally starve or had to wonder where the next meal was coming from. Right? I've always been comfortable, but still, for some reason, my sense of security or monetary security only came if I had X amount of money in my bank. Right? Throughout my 20s and 30s, I worked like crazy. Why? It was to achieve that and to maintain that. As I've gotten older, I have realized that it is not that important. That I have things which matter more. So I have let that go. It's not that I do not have any security values. I do, but they have changed. Now it is not about a fixed amount of money in my bank. It's about different things. It's about how safe my house is. It's about how I do not injure myself or how I do not injure others. How I maintain harmony between me and the nature around me. Right? So, security. What is it that makes me feel secure? What is it that I consider safe? Yes? Conformity. Conformity and tradition. These are usually considered to be the two sides of the same coin. I beg to differ. Right? Tradition is a healthy respect to customs and ideas of society. Now, by society, I mean the culture or the religion that you follow, whichever is more important to you in life. Right? The country, the state that you live in, and the commitment, the traditions that they have. So your commitment to that, yeah? Your acceptance of that is tradition. How much do you respect or accept of it? Right? See, for example, if you go to Japan, they or Korea, right? Again, Asian countries like us, but they have very set standards about people uh, seniorities based on age. Right? If somebody is older than you, they are respected at a different level. If somebody is younger than you, they are treated at a different level, and they have very strict adherence to it. A lot of people, even a lot Western people, of course, but a lot of Asians also find it very difficult to understand or accept those. Right? So when supposing if you're working for a company which has offices in Japan or in Korea and you have to go there, you will be trained to synthesize you to that culture so that you do not make mistakes. Yeah, so that you don't goof up. Now, it is your personal value. Will you be able to accept it or would you not? Right? That is tradition. Now, conformity is self-restraints, is restraining your actions, your inclinations and impulses so that you do not create conflict in society. Right? Are you somebody who is willing to do that? Or to what extent are you willing to restrain yourself to avoid confrontation? Right? See, I told you earlier on that I'm somebody who's not confrontational. Right? I avoid it. So I conform to a lot of societal rules and regulations. But there are certain places where I do not. For example, if I see somebody being cruel to an animal, right? Non-confrontational me who would otherwise walk away from a situation will go all guns blazing at that person. right? Even when I know that it is not probably going to help or it is not going to change that person, I will still go at them. I will get into a fight, a physical fight, a verbal fight for sure. Why? Because that is a societal standard that I'm not willing to conform to. Right? The societal standard that says that human life or human beings are above and beyond all other life forms in the world. You get it? So conformity and tradition are different. Conformity is about how much you're willing to restrain yourself, how much willing are you to constrain yourself, right? So as to not violate social expectations and norms, right? So as to not cause harm to others. Right? Tradition is acceptance, or how much of acceptance and respect do you give social values, customs, and ideas. Get it? Okay. Now, the last of the four groups, that is self-transcendence. Right? This is going above and beyond yourself. This is outside of you. This is not about who you are internally. This is you and your external behavior. The first is benevolence. Benevolence is how willing are you to work for or to improve or enhance others' life. Now, by others, we mean people who are in your frequent touch, in your personal contact, your group of people. So these could be your family, these could be your friends, right? These could be people who you hold dear to. How much are you willing to do, or what is it that you are willing to do to keep them happy, to keep them healthy, right? To preserving their welfare. That is benevolence. Universalism is moving out of this group of your people to the world at large, right? How tolerant are you to things that don't work for you, right? So, for example, I do not believe in littering. I do not throw wrappers or things around. Right? But does that mean I go around lecturing people not to do it? No. If I see somebody throw something, if I can pick it up and throw it away, I pick it up and throw it away myself. Right? Depending on the context or the place I am, I may ask a person that they should not litter. But if they're not willing, I'm not going to get into a fight with them. I'll just pick it up and throw it. Right? If I cannot do it, if it's something that I can't clean up, I'll probably try and find somebody who can. Right? Would I get into a fight with people for that? No. Why? Because I have the choice of ignoring things that don't work for it and changing it to making that change so that I can make it acceptable to me. Right? So tolerance and understanding. Am I able to appreciate others? Am I able to appreciate what somebody else is doing? Right? So I am a trainer, right? I train, but I'm not the only trainer in the world. There are others. Am I able to see what they do and say, oh, you are good too? Oh, that is great. That's brilliant. I hadn't. That's universal. Some of us are able to do it to a great extent. Some are able to do it to smaller extents. Right? Understanding and appreciating. Now, in both cases, I have said people, but by people, I don't just mean human beings. Right? For example, when I say benevolence, my pets, right, the ones that live in my house with me, when I do something for their welfare, right, when I ensure that they have clean food, water, place to sleep, when I play with them, when I take them to their doctor regularly, that is benevolence. Right? When I expand this and I put out a bowl of water for birds, feed stray animals, that is universals. Right? So welfare for people outside of my group is universalism. Welfare and working for welfare of people in my group is benevolence. Right? Now, when they were creating this theory and when they were defining these values, there was one more that they thought of, which they do mention, and that is spirituality. Now, I'm not talking about religion here. This is not about which God you pray to or how you pray to or how many hours you pray to. This is spirituality. It is your belief or your connect with a higher being. Now, you could call it science, you could call it God, you could call it whatever you want. right? But spirituality. Now they consider this, but what they realize is that it is not something that is common across all cultures, because there are cultures that do not believe or subscribe to it, and therefore it is not a basic human value, though it is an honorable mention, right? Spirituality is a human value that is very important, and a lot of us, a lot of human beings do adhere to it, but it is not common to people across cultures. And therefore, it is not considered a basic human value under this theory, but just an honorable mention. Right? So these are the 10 basic human values. Now, like I've been talking to you, this theory further says that these 10 values don't stand independent of each other. They all interact, they are all interdependent. At times what happens is that you adhere to one means that you are in direct conflict with another, right? So many times your openness to change, yeah, your willingness to change, your willingness to look at things differently puts you in direct conflict with your traditions, your beliefs and traditions, with conformity. Okay? So does that make those things wrong? No. No. Can a person have two opposing values? Yes. Why? Because like I told you before, we are human beings. We have the ability to adapt our belief system, our value system to the context that we are in, to the people we are interacting with, to the situation we are in. Right? So, for example, the way I behave or the way I would teach something to a child is different than how I would behave with an adult. Right? So if I find two children fighting over a piece of food, I might stop them physically and say, this is a very bad habit. Who taught you this? Why are you doing it like that? And lecture them on values. Why? Because they are little people yet. They are still to develop their value systems. Right? They still have to experience a lot in life. And so they are at the developmental stage, which is when I should be imparting knowledge to them, which is when I should be empowering them to make correct choices, empowering them to make choices and create a value system that will hold them in good stead as they grow older. So this is the place, or this is the time to impart knowledge, to share information with them. With an adult, I don't know where that person is coming from. I do not know the person's life situations. Can I then go ahead and lecture them on what is right or wrong? Probably not. Should I? Probably not. But probably I should not probably lecture them. But if I think they're doing something that is incorrect, or I'm doing something that is completely against my value system and what I believe is correct, should I bring it to their notice? I definitely can. But I need to choose the correct way. I cannot go about it by lecturing them and telling them you're wrong, I'm right, please take, this is how you do it. What do I do in that case? I might tell them, give them examples, show them a different method, show them an alternative, ask them or offer them the choice to make, to change their value system, right? So, for example, we always say that, you should not give beggars money on the, when you're standing at traffic signals and beggars come up to your window and they knock on your car door and ask for money, do not give money to them. That's what you believe in. Now, a lot of people I've noticed would roll down their windows and get into conversations with them, trying to explain to them that they should work hard, that they're healthy, and then it never ends well. There are some people who will not give money, but they'll have food. So they'll give them biscuits, or they'll give them fruits or candy, and they make themselves feel good about it. Okay. I've also seen at times people actually would offer jobs to people. And we had this kid who used to come beg, beg at home long ago when you had beggars going from door to door. Now I don't see that happening any longer, but at that point, and one of our neighbors actually offered the young girl a job. She says, I will give you a job, you come work and I'll pay you money so you don't have to beg. The kid took it She worked. She started working outside of her house. As she learned and she developed a relationship with that lady, she started doing jobs inside the house. The lady put her through some basic education. She did well. She got off the streets. Right? So how you work with people depends on, and what sort of views do you hold, what sort of ethics do you hold, and how you impose them or how you enact them or how you work on them depends on the person you are with or the situation you are in and the context you are, right? And because there's so much of fluidity here and there is so much of space for you to change and alter, value systems are always dynamic. And that is also why they're always individual, because it's my choice, right? Like it is your choice, what you want to do or what you don't want to do. She could have also just like everybody else given the kid food and sent her away on her way, like everybody else did. Right? But she chose to do something different. Right? So they're dynamic, they keep changing. Your life experiences will bring tremendous changes in your value systems as you grow older. Yeah? Fine. Now, every profession has a code of conduct, right? Like for lawyers, there are certain set code of conduct that they have to follow. Same for doctors, right? But or for engineers or for trainers, every career has its own code of conduct that people need to follow, right? The people who practice that profession need to follow. But across all businesses, across all sorts of professions, there are certain values, there are certain ethical principles that do not change, that everybody expects, or every person, no matter what profession they're engaged in, is expected to follow. These are integrity. You have to be honest. You have to be honest with yourself, with your organization, with your colleagues, with your customers or clients. Yes, because if you're not honest, you're not going to be doing anybody justice. Right? So integrity is very important. Then comes objectivity. Objectivity is being able to go above and beyond what I want and what I like to doing what is correct. Right? What is right? Being able to put myself and my belief on the side and doing what is correct for my organization, my colleagues, my customers or clients. Right? Objectivity. Then confidentiality. When you are in the workspace, you owe it to your organization, to your colleagues, to your clients and customers to keep information, to keep practices confidential, to not go around sharing it with the world at large. Yeah? You have to create trust for them to be able to trust you. And you need to maintain that trust. Right? So we see a lot of times that whistleblowing happens when somebody from an organization speaks up about what is wrong. Are they wrong? No. I'm not saying they're wrong. Right? Should they have shut up and sat down quietly in the name of confidentiality as a universal professional ethical principle? No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you owe it to people, but there are, of course, limitations to it. There are, of course, boundaries that are set to it. If something or an organization or a person involved, could be a client, could be a colleague, is stepping out of legal boundaries or is stepping entirely out of acceptable societal norms, you definitely can and should come out about it and talk openly about it. Then I'm not saying you need to be confidential or you need to protect them or protect their or be loyal to them or protect their truths. Not necessary then. But overall, right? Every decision, every idea cannot be an opportunity to blow a whistle. Right? There has to be some amount of trust. There has to be some amount of confidentiality that exists in your relationships within your organizational structure. Right? Professional competence and due diligence. You owe it again to your workspace and the people that you work with and interact with over there, that you are competent, that you are updated to whatever profession you're doing, you're practicing, right? So we have doctors who are 70 years old, does not mean that they prescribe the same medicine that they did when they started practicing. They change. They go attend courses, they do continuing education programs. Why? Because medicine is a constantly evolving profession. New theories are coming in, new ways of practice are coming in, SOPs keep changing. If a doctor does not update himself or herself, he is going to make a mess of treatment. Is that okay? No. No. Yes. So competence is something that you owe yourself first, and then your organization and the people attached to it. Same with due diligence. Just because you are something is how it is done does not mean you do not take care to see that there is nothing going wrong there. Right? There are quality checks in everything. Systems are in place for people to function well, but that does not mean they're infallible. Right? People make systems. People make everything go, and people can fail. People can make mistakes. Things can change, and therefore things that were fine yesterday are not fine today. Right? As a professional, it is your job, your duty to ensure that you keep a constant check on all processes, on all methodologies, on all the things that you do. Yeah? So your competence again comes into play here. If you are not competent enough, you will fail to see what is not right, what is not working, and therefore you will fail to be able to correct it. Yeah. Then comes, which directly leads us to accountability and adherence. Accountability is being having somebody take measure of what you're doing, being answerable to somebody. See, for example, I'm a freelancer. Right? That does not mean that I'm not answerable to anybody and that I can do what I want, when I want, how I want. No, I also have deadlines. I have clients, right, who expect certain things of me, who pay me for that job. So I have to finish it and give it to them. They expect certain standards of it. So I have to adhere to those two. Get it? That is accountability. And that's very important. And same goes for adherence. There are standards, there are limitations, there are boundaries set which I need to follow. They could be legal, they could be from my organization, they could be personal. I need to follow those. Then comes professional behavior. Right? Professional behavior is again behaving, dressing, acting in a way that reflects my organization and its value system. Why? Because every time I step outside, I am a representative of my organization. Again, I'm a freelancer, so I don't really have an organization behind me, but I am the organization. So how I behave, how I act reflects on my work ethics. Right? So if I turn up at a client meeting, if it's on, like we are having a webinar and I'm online, I'm not in person. So if I'm having an online meeting and if I turn up in my PJs, hair all disheveled, then my client is not going to believe that I'm going to do a good job, that I'm professional enough. Understand? So those small, these are very important things because they define you, they create an image of you. Right? Now, these are universal professional ethical principles. Each person, right, when they go into the workspace, should also have a personal ethical code. Right? Now, certain values are expected no matter what job you're doing. They're similar to professional ethical codes, but these are more about you, personal to you. One is be honest. Right? Honesty is very important. Then is loyalty. Right? Transparency. In that, you don't hide why you're doing or how you're doing, because there's this saying that says that knowledge improves by sharing. So knowledge is sharing. So by hiding things that you're doing and how you're doing and protecting your processes does not really enable growth. Right? Responsibility and respectfulness. Responsibility towards your work, respect towards your work, and responsibility and respectfulness towards the people who are involved with you, who work with you. Boundaries and openness, both. How far and how much is okay, but at the same time, open to changes, open to new ideas. Right? Due care. Care for self and ensuring that nobody else and nothing else gets hurt or damaged. That includes property. So if I go to work, I cannot sit on my table and scratch or draw things on the table. I cannot ruin it. I can't chip paint off. I can't go just willy-nilly throw around cups and pens and stuff like that. Due care. Right? These are some ethical principles that each person should try and adhere to when you go out into the work world. Right? Now, why is it important that your organization's personal ethical code and your ethical code match? When there is a similar value system, it becomes easy for you or for anybody to adopt it, because it's just the same thing, right? If you believe, for example, if you are in the service industry, right, and you believe that customer is king and that you should do whatever it takes to make the customer feel comfortable, right? If your organization also, of course, believes that, then you are okay. And nothing is okay, even if you have abusive customer sometime or somebody is getting a little out of hand, you're going to be okay because it aligns with your personal ethical code. You're okay. You say, okay, fine, this is a customer, he's or she is king, and I'm okay with however he or she behaves. But if you personally believe that there is only a certain standard to which you are willing to bend for a customer, and after which you're like, no, this behavior is not acceptable, but your organization says there are no limitations to how badly a customer can behave with you, you will have conflict. Right? It'll be very difficult for you. Why? Because you have your organization that is telling you to bend backwards while your own personal code is not allowing you to bend that much. Right? So when value systems are similar, you are going to be able to adopt them easily. You are going to feel an ownership with your organization. You'll want to take more responsibility. Right? It motivates you to work because you feel, okay, this is a place that addresses me or has the same thought process that I do. Yeah. So it enables you to come up with creative solutions, or it enables you to come up with new things and new ideas. Why? Because you feel a oneness to it. So your professional and personal ethics have to match. Right? Only then can you maximize. What happens when values and ethics converge? Right? The same way, when professional and personal ethics are aligned, you have a easier way in your work world. Similarly, when your values and your ethics, and the way you think and the way you behave are similar, or rather are in adherence with each other, are converging, then conflicts go down. Why? Because you're not constantly warring with yourself. You're not constantly telling you this is wrong, this doesn't work, I need to change. This does not work for me. Right? Your work experience has become better. You're not facing dilemmas at an everyday level that, oh God, what should I do now? Right? You want to do better, you do better, and therefore your organization does better. So both your personal potential gets realized and your organizational potential gets maximized. Right? Their motives, their desires get fulfilled because yours are also getting fulfilled, because you're all working towards the same way. Right? So divergence creates issues. When there is no divergence, when everything is going fine, then everything is good. How do you make sure that this works? How do you get to that point of convergence of values and ethics? Who will do it for you? You will only have to do it for yourself. It's a DIY. Right? You need to start very early. But it's never too late. Okay, the two different ideas that I'm giving you, but please understand, you need to start as early as you start, that much better, that much less wasted resources, but start wherever you are, right? First, you need to sit down with yourself and define your core values and your personal ethical code. What is it that you believe in? What is it that you are? How would you like to behave? And be brutally honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself. This is not something you're going to share with anybody. This is just for yourself. Right? Now, then, if you've not yet planned your career, then that's brilliant, because that's how early you need to start. Apply these standards to the careers that you're looking at. See whether that career choice will work for you. Right? See, I'll give you again a personal example. I am trained to be a journalist. I have gone to school, communication school, learned journalism. Right? Why? Because when I started and when I evaluated as a kid, and I say I was a kid then, I thought this was the right job for me and this was the place I wanted to be, and this is fine. This is what I wanted to do and I would do well at it. But when I actually became a journalist, after I finished my education and I actually took up my first journalist job as a journalist, I went out in the field, I realized that a journalist needs to be objective. A journalist needs to be able to put aside their own personal beliefs in whatever and their own personal interpretation of a value and present what is of a situation as is. I found that was not me. I found that I get too involved. I realized that when I see a situation, I sometimes cease to be objective about it. Right? Sometimes some things move me so much that I become, at that point, this is long ago, yeah, I could not find myself flexible enough to change and see the other side. I saw things in black and white. It was my way or the highway. Yeah, and my way was always the right way. And that was the only way I was willing to present. So I realized I couldn't be a journalist. I was not doing justice to it. Good thing was I was in a situation where I could switch careers and still not have it adversely affect me. Right? It's a good idea to define your values, define your ethical standards before you commit resources. Right? Resources could be time, would be money, would be your efforts, would be your personal involvement. Right? So do it then. Then when you actually start applying to jobs, whether you choose to become an entrepreneur, actually work or work for yourself, work for companies, please always pick only those organizations and positions that have similar standards, similar ethical principles as you do. Do not, and what happens, and we see this a lot with young people, is pay packages or friends or culture, right? Or the name of the company lures people into jobs. You might have the correct qualifications, educational qualification, and you get the job. But if you do not believe in those core values that organization has, you will not do well. You will ultimately either lag behind or quit. Right? Dissatisfaction happens. Now, many times you take up a job, you've applied all of this, you get in there, and then something happens or you realize that there's a value that you do not believe in. You should be prepared to take a stand for your values. There would be repercussions, be willing to accept it. Right? This is where whistleblowers come in. They got into a career choice, they enjoyed it, they liked it, they thought everything was fine, and then they realized, oh, this is something that is not good, that this is not correct, and therefore they took that stand. They accept the repercussion. They probably lost job, they probably faced legal sanctions against them. Be prepared to do that. You need to be able to do that. That's one. The other is you can be open to change. Sometimes something comes up when you're in your workspace, some code of conduct which you would have otherwise thought, oh my God, this is not acceptable, this is not right. But the way it gets presented, you think, makes sense. I can live with this. I'm willing to change. Go ahead and be open to change. Like I said earlier on, don't be rigid. Okay? Don't say I cannot change. Don't say I cannot have new values. You can, and you should, because you're a human being. You have to evolve. You cannot be stagnant. So be open to change. But decide for yourself how much, what, yeah, decide your boundaries. How much will you change? The what, the where, when, how much, that is your choice. Yeah, it's not necessary that you completely change everything and accept something. You may, there's nothing wrong with, you may, but it is your choice to set that boundaries. Okay? Decide those and pick those and do that. Yeah. Right? Again, whenever you make changes to your value system, whenever you make changes to your ethical codes, there will be compromises. Everything has a retribution. Yeah. Be willing to accept those as well. You can't say that I change and that's enough. Why should I have to face any retribution? No, you will have to. Right? Learn to roll with the punches. The choices you may choose to stand up and say, nope, out, this is not done. I take a stand and face those repercussions. Or you may say, no, I can change. I think this works for me and I'm willing to make a change. I'm willing to look at it this way. Fine. Accept the consequences of that action as well. So whatever action you choose to do, both are correct, but both will have consequences, and accept that and be willing to accept them. Yeah. See, because basically life will give you lemons, right? But it's your choice what you make of it, right? If I have lemons and if I want, I can either just cut the lemon and suck on it and pucker and say, oh God, this is so, I don't like it. And my choice. Or I can just pick it up and throw it. I don't want this. Or I can say, okay, I don't want the lemon, but let me cut it open. Let me take the seeds, plant the seeds, grow lemon trees, sell lemons, make a business, right? Or I can say, why just plant the trees? Let me make lemonade out of this. Or let me make a cake and eat it and enjoy it. My choice. Or maybe you'd come up with something completely different. Entirely your choice, right? Life is not a peach, as they say. It's full of lemons. As far as possible, make lemonade, make cake, or grow lemon trees. Yeah? That'll make life sweeter. Add value and flavor to it. Yeah. Thank you very much. I hope you took something away from this and that this helps you to set your own value systems and to create your own ethical codes and function well and do well in your professional lives. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you all for attending our webinar. I'm very much thankful to Ankita ma'am. That was insightful explanation on human values and business ethics, ma'am. Thank you very much. I want to thank you on behalf of CEO M. Nagaraj and Joint CEO Mansi ma'am. Thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you so much.